chemical
But they are. I mean,
warfare,
that's what they have.
chemical warfare that's been illegal for well since World
Adrenochrome
War
and
One.
selling
They could be still doing
melanin.
chemical warfare. Experimenting and freaking all that. You have no clue.
Now, there's been quite a bit done in all the topics you covered there. Uh, Genetic, when I was a kid, there was a magazine I used to read. It was a science magazine dedicated to kids. There was a TV show too. I thought the TV show sucked, but I loved the magazine. 321 Contact. And in that magazine, before all this stuff, everything that's a hot topic today was a hot topic. This magazine covered it, and it made it sound good, and they addressed it in an informative way. And yeah, we've been doing genetic splicing. I think I was reading this magazine in the late 80s and the early 90s, and it was talking about the GMO crops, about goats producing genetically engineering goats to make spider webs so that you can make armor. And the Chinese have been doing that for a long time because they copied our tech on it. Uh, no, this magazine covered everything that's a conspiracy topic today, just out in the open, in a kids magazine in the 80s and 90s.
Hmm.
Yeah, the thing about truly one of the most horrific things they're doing behind closed doors now is genetic splicing. It includes human DNA. Because once they mix some DNA in there that's not human and they produce something, it could be 99% human. It's like, oh, we've got something spliced in that's not a human. They don't have rights. And they can produce what's basically humans. Create slaves. They can create, you know, body slaves. They can produce real slaves.
Military. They
They
can
can
produce
produce
military.
anything they want, and it has no more legal standing than a lab rat.
And they can
And
kill
that is some
the
of the stuff they have done behind closed doors.
Yep. Now, like Avatar. Okay, have you ever watched the movie Avatar?
yes.
Excellent movie, yes.
Okay, now Avatar really hits onto that because, and like you were talking about genetic splicing, it's known that in cancer patients that whenever they freaking want to replace a gene, they can freaking do genetic splicing and they can introduce freaking the gene of a rat into the gene of a human and place that into the human body, which is actually used and it's beneficial for fighting off cancer. And the rat's cell actually can work with this genetic splicing. And they've been doing that. They've been openly doing it, and they say that it's beneficial, it's good. Nobody really overlooks that, you know what I mean? But nobody takes it into consideration that there was research behind that shit. You know what I mean? They just didn't come up with the idea. There was years and years of research that went into that before they could make it to
Right. So
where
imagine how many mess ups they had. How many people just had to kind of, oh well, we couldn't save you.
it
And no,
just
that's what
didn't
that'll
it
let you
didn't
know.
spawn up out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And then you take a real close look at Avatar and what it's saying right there. Okay, you go into a freaking pod, you lay down, and your body is your mind is separated from your body completely and put into an avatar. Okay, on an alien planet. Okay, and that right there is what gets me. I mean, that right there is right there in your face.
But you don't have to do that.
Well,
But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, no, no, no. Because we are, yeah, okay.
it's becoming
Yeah.
acceptable. You know what I mean?
I mean,
And
that's what
never
we're
forget
doing
the Bruce
now.
Willis version that came before it.
Decepticons. I call them
I can't remember the
Decepticons.
name of that movie right now, but it was basically the same idea with androids.
Yeah, yeah. And this stuff
Yeah,
is
I
just
call them
being
Decepticons.
it's just being put out to the public to where freaking all of this stuff is either criticized or it's being freaking just socially acceptable. And see, I thought 321 Contact was also a PBS TV show back when I was a kid.
Yeah, I knew the TV show was there. I watched it once or twice, and I thought it was stupid.
It was annoying.
But the magazine itself was actually, they put a lot of work into that magazine, and it was shilling for future globalist programs is what it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, I see it in a lot of the cartoons we used to watch too.
Oh yeah.
You know, like what was it? Star. It was the one where they had to travel into space, and they had a ship that looked like a spaceship. Star something, but it was before Robotech and all that stuff, and they were just straight out freaking, you know. On one side they'll talk about how horrible the devastation of Earth is, but then they'll also freaking endorse nuclear freaking power and using freaking nuclear bombs and stuff like that so that they can go out into space and explore and stuff. So you could see where nuclear power was being pushed back then. And back when the 70s was around, you know, you take a look at people back then going out and protesting because they're putting nuclear reactors up around their neighborhoods so that they could have power. And now you look at it today, everybody's all cool with it. It's the safest form of energy. Like this, like flying, you know, it's the safest form of travel. And it's just basically they literally brainwashed everybody into believing that it's true. You know, there's other forms of transportation other than airplanes that are just as safe, if not safer. Just like friggin' there's other forms of energy that can be used that's 100% safer. But they just want you to think that it's okay to put a frickin' power plant up in the middle of the Ukrainian frickin' war so that Russia can frickin' sit there and shoot missiles at it. But that's not a conspiracy. It's just, you know, they already had one accident over there, which the city itself that it happened in can't even be lived in now. But,
Yeah,
hey,
Chernobyl. Yeah, that's
Chernobyl.
actually in Ukraine, but it was part of the Soviet Union when it happened. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Now this new nuclear power plant is just down the road from it. It's like maybe a 6-hour drive. And a lot of people don't realize that shit. You know? They're okay with it because scientists can go out there with their freaking their testing, and they can freaking test how the freaking animals reacted to it and shit like that, so they keep quiet. You know what I mean?
I actually saw a news article last week about why Germany has so many radioactive bores, and it led back to Chernobyl. I didn't read the whole article, but apparently the radiation gets into Germany through animals. That's a pretty long walk.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, have you heard Elon Musk's bullshit when it comes to radiation too? And I've noticed a couple people online are jumping onto the bandwagon about that nuclear power shit. Like he's saying, well, you know, we're going to have to freaking stop this whole thing about radiation and everything, because the truth is when we travel to Mars, our astronauts are going to have to put up with high levels of radiation in the first place, which is true, okay? But I think he's kind of going off scope there, trying to freaking push the power issue, you know what I mean?
I'm actually pro-nuclear power, but not necessarily in the old way. If you read up on pebble bed reactors, that sort of thing, I'm all for a pebble bed reactor, something that's less dangerous. And I'm not fully against the old-fashioned way. The problem with the old-fashioned way, it's a combination of too much regulation and not enough correction. There's so many safety rules in so many instances have gotten so strict and so in depth, you've actually had the opposite effect. When you get too stringent and nitpick a safety to death, you eventually hit a point where people start ignoring problems because they don't want to have to deal with the safety involved.
Yeah.
Or things start getting overlooked and things don't get addressed because of the bullshit red tape around it. I saw this all the time when I was on a government job. You would have things that would just fester for years because no one wants to do the paperwork. And I think that's part of the problem we've had with nuclear power. There's certain places where they need to relax, and there's certain places where they need to buckle down, and they didn't necessarily choose the right options. By the way, the Bruce Willis movie was Surrogates. Avatar before Avatar came out.
Yeah.
God, are you preaching or are you preaching? I'm just sitting here listening.
Well, see, the thing about that is it's all fine and dandy here in the United States, but on a world scale, I mean.
And how do you fix the world? And does anyone care about fixing the world? Don't say you can't. That's negativity.
Like, you got these regulations. You got these regulations in the United States, but those same regulations aren't going to freaking help when it comes to China. It's not going to help when it comes to freaking Pakistan, who smuggled their freaking nuclear technology in through freaking Azerbaijan.
There has to be a common incentive, and it has to not be money. Power.
Yeah, and smuggling. I mean, that was just so wrong. They totally cut the Clintons out of the equation and didn't bribe the technology out of them like a civilized country should.
See, now we're getting into the good shit. That's conspiracy right there. See, that's.
But is it?
Now, remember when we first started this, I said conspiracy versus conspiracy theory.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go.
Okay, that's right. Conspiracy to commit a crime that was completely overlooked. So what did they do? They used conspiracy theories to freaking keep people away from thinking about that. Because if you even mention the word frickin' Hillary Clinton, all of a sudden you're a frickin' conspiracy theory kook who frickin' is uneducated and knows nothing about science. Right?
I mean, look at us. We're getting clam baked and Clinton in the same episode.
Yeah.
That would definitely.
And they want to separate the two, like there's a difference between a conspiracy and a conspiracy theory. No, there isn't. It's basically the same shit. These people who are making these claims that are conspiracy theories are talking about people who are committing are in the process.
But a theory discredits it. And that's why they slap theory on it, because a theory is something that cannot technically be proven, although it can be possibly real.